Hi friends, welcome to our Making Sidewalk Chalk or Sidewalk Paint program. We are going to try a few different recipes and we're going to see which one works best. So for our first recipe, we need a substance called cornstarch. And I need 1.5 cups of the cornstarch. So we'll pour that in. And then I already pre-measured 1.5 cups of water. So I'm going to pour this in and then we're going to mix it together. This is one of the easier recipes. I have some other recipes that we're going to try that one has plaster of Paris in the ingredients. Okay, so I have it mixed up and now it calls for me to pour this solution into muffin tins. Okay, I'm going to get another set. And I still see some cornstarch on the edge. So I'm going to try to mix it up as best I can. Okay, so now what you need next is food coloring. So I have my different colors. Maybe we can even try to mix some colors to make different colors. So I'm just gonna do, so there's a couple drops into each and stir. 1, 2, 3. I'll use a craft stick to stir it. And some green. So you see how all the different colors turned out. Very nice and colorful. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna let this sit and then we'll come back and check it to see how it is once it's hardened and we have chalk. Stay tuned. Okay, this is our cornstarch, water, and food coloring solution. I was disappointed when I came in on Monday after the weekend to find that these were still quite liquidy. So I set one outside and one I put in the freezer. I've seen recipes where they use the cornstarch and water just to make chalk paint, and I think that's what we've done. I don't believe we have chalk, sidewalk chalk. Even the one I had in the freezer, you can see it's beginning to thaw. And I did try to pour off some of the excess water and you could see my colors mixed, which kind of gave a neat effect. So what you'll use is a paintbrush. And I'm going to use some black construction paper. So I'm going to get my paintbrush. You can see it's liquidy. So I used a paintbrush with the chalk paint and you can see it gave a pretty neat effect. Stay tuned for our next project. Okay, for our next recipe, we are going to use a substance called plaster of Paris. And the recipe that I have says to follow the recipe of mixing plaster of Paris on the container. So on the container, it tells me I need 2 parts of plaster of Paris to 1 part of cold water. So I had water here in the refrigerator. So what I'm going to do to get my various colors is I'm going to use tempera paint. So it said 2 tablespoons of tempera paint per whatever size water that you use. So I'm going to use 1 part water. I'm going to pour it in this cup. I'm going to add my 2 tablespoons of tempera paint. And I'm going to mix it so that I have my color already mixed. One recipe I saw said be careful not to use too much paint. See if you can see. And this is washable. So I'm going to mix that, and that's how it turned out. Okay, now I'm going to add my plaster of Paris. So I'm going to add it, and I'm going to mix it with the craft stick. You can see, I think I'm going to put a little bit more plaster of Paris. Now, it told me that I needed to prepare tubes. So I'm going to pour this solution into some tubes that I prepared, and they are lined with wax paper, and then on the end that's it's going to stand on, I covered it with duct tape. So we're going to pour this into the tube, and hopefully it won't spill out all over the place. Okay, so I have my purple. Now I'm going to do red. So shake my paint up. I have my water already in here. Mix this. I have red. Then I'm going to add my plaster of Paris. I've never used plaster of Paris before, so I'm anxious to see how this will turn out. It says it should set up in 20 to 30 minutes, but I think I'm going to leave it for a few days just to see what kind of results we get. It turned pink, so we might have pink chalk, even though I used red. So I have another one of my tubes ready. I'm going to pour the pink solution into the tube. All right, we have that one done. Okay, now we're going to do one more. I have my water already in here. I'm going to use green. I'm not using exact measurements with the plaster of Paris. So I mix the green. And my pink is spilling out in my tray. I have 2 trays and some wax paper, so hopefully it'll be okay and not make a big mess here in the library. That would not be good. We also have a table cover on the table. This might be enough for 2 tubes. So I'll pour that in. Oh, and they also said once you pour it in the tube, you want to make sure you get the bubbles out of it. So I'm going to try to get the bubbles out. Okay, so we're gonna let these sit for a few days, and then I will come back and check and see if we have sidewalk chalk. Okay, so I let the chalk sit over the weekend, and now we're going to see how it turned out. So this was the plaster of Paris. And I'm gonna cut open the tube to see if it hardened enough to be chalk. The tubes did get kind of soaked through, so that may be the reason you use the wax paper. I'm going to peel it off. And it looks like we were successful. It feels a little soft still to me, but we'll test it on the sidewalk and see if it writes. Stay tuned. Okay, so I unpeeled all the tubes and wax paper off of our plaster of Paris, temper paint, and water solution, and you can see they look like real, it looks like sidewalk chalk. So we're gonna test it on a piece of black paper, and then I'll take it out to the sidewalk to see if it writes on the sidewalk as well. Stay tuned. Okay, so I have my piece of black construction paper here. I'm gonna try one of these to see if they work, and it does. We'll try it out on the sidewalk next. Okay. So I made a little welcome sign for anybody who comes to visit the library with our sidewalk chalk. It worked. One suggestion I would make is I did not do exact measurements when I used the plaster of Paris. And in the future, I would do that. So if you would use, so it's 2 parts of plaster of Paris to 1 part water. So if you do a cup, you would need a ½ cup of water. For our next recipe, we are going to make some DIY puffy sidewalk paint. And the ingredients for this recipe is flour, some shaving cream, food coloring, and water. So I'm going to give you the recipe, but I'm going to cut it in half. It calls for a ½ cup of flour and a ½ cup of water. And they say mix this up because you don't want any lumps in your flour. So I'm going to use a craft stick to mix it up. Now we are going to add 10 drops of food coloring. You can help me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We need a 1/4 of a cup of shaving cream. So I'm going to shake it up. I don't know how easy it's going to be to transfer the shaving cream from the measuring spoon to the solution, but we will try. The instructions that I read, she said they didn't follow measurements exactly, and that may be why, because it's kind of difficult and messy. Okay, so I'm going to use my craft stick to mix all this up, and then I'm going to zip it closed, and we'll do like we did for our ice cream in a bag and mix it up that way. I maybe won't measure the shaving cream next time I make it because it is a bit of a mess. Stay tuned. Okay, so I mixed up our puffy shaving cream sidewalk paint solution to the consistency that I wanted, and I'm going to cut a little cut out of this bag, and I have these little squeeze bottles. You can get these at the dollar store in the kitchen department, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze it from the bag into the bottle. Okay, so there's our green. I'll put the lid on. You can even shake it up a little bit. Then we're gonna make another color. Okay, so I'm going to make another color, and I have my half a cup of flour in the bag. I'm gonna pour in half a cup of water. I'm going to mix it so we don't have any lumps. And then we need 10 drops of food coloring. So I'll do yellow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That might have been more than 10. I'm gonna use 1/4 of a cup of shaving cream, and like I said, it wasn't really easy to measure. So just like the instructions that I found, they said they did not do exact measurements. I'm not gonna do exact. So I'm gonna mix it. Get some of the air out of the bag. Okay, so I have the consistency that I want for my puppy paint. I'm gonna get another one of my squeezy bottles. I'm gonna cut the corner off the bag. And maybe if you don't have a squeezy bottle, you could just use these Ziploc bags for your solution, for your puppy paint. It might be a little bit easier to control for little hands with the little bottles. Okay, so now I have 2 bottles. Stay tuned and we'll test it out on some black paper. Okay, so I have my black paper. I'm gonna get one of my squeezy bottles. I think I'm gonna draw a flower. Okay, so I have my outline, and then I can use the green to color it in. Now, on the instructions for this puffy sidewalk paint, they said they did wash it off their driveway before it dried, so that might be something you want to do. Okay, so I'll use my green to fill it in, and you can see it's puppy paint. Thanks for joining me today.